So it looks like we're all set. All right, hey guys. So for my part of the project, or the book huddle, I read pages 153 to 207, and I could truly say that I got a lot out of this reading. I learned a lot of good points that I could make in teaching a science class, and it will be very useful in the future. So first, some of the major topics that were covered in the 50 pages I read were using common sense, gravity on the moon, and the role of the air, moving from interpretations to ideas for instructions, considering how the questions influence the students' responses, discussing a case study, mass, inertia, and acceleration, suggestions for reading and viewing, discussing the question set, emphasizing the substance of students' ideas and reasoning, interpreting the substance of the students' thinking, moving from interpretations to ideas for instructions, ideas for teaching, objectives for science, education, cultivating resources, coordinating with traditional objectives, having and valuing discussions, expect students to have abilities, and play a substantial role in the discussions. These are some of them. I know it's a lot actually, but some of them. I have many facts that stood out to me when reading these sections, and I want to read some to you guys. A common tendency is for participants to make general claims about students' thinking without pointing to specifics. As participants begin to identify specific examples of student thinking, we push for interpretations of the students' ideas and reasoning, and for explanations of why students may be thinking in certain ways. Often, a student's response to a particular question will lead the group to look for a similar or contrasting response from another student. This will cause many people to discuss the topic to get a conversation going. Paying attention is the key to success in science. If you don't pay attention, then it's like any other class. You won't do well at all. So paying attention to science is key. Students' understanding of the relationships among mass, inertia, and acceleration is usually a major topic of discussion. Encourage students to use their common sense and discourage them from just trying to use vocabulary and concepts they have mostly recently been taught, but without deeper understanding. Most practicing teachers acknowledge that, as they often face this issue in their classes. However, it's important to appreciate the challenges faced by the students too. In many classes, they're supposed to simply repeat things they have heard from the teacher, and it might be asking a lot for them to switch their approach for one particular activity. Another suggestion is that when students work on questions sets like this, a teacher might circulate around the room, emphasizing his point that he wants them to think simply about each scenario. A teacher suggests this himself in his case study, actually, in one of the labs that I'll eventually talk about. And it's very important, though. I'll be explaining it later, but and it seems to many participants that this could help keep students focused on using their institution rather than falling back on the tendency to recite. If a class is hard and the students are not participating in answering questions, they're either not interested or they're really scared to get points marked off or scared they get the incorrect answer because they might feel embarrassed. But yeah, like I'm in a class right now and this deals a little bit with it. The teacher talks and no one's answers because they just don't know what is going on or just doesn't know what's the answer. But it's pretty typical, I guess, in many science classes that many people have or I have in general. If a student keeps making an unclear answer, listen to them and then try to make a clear answer. This is very important because you do not want to like call out a student for a wrong answer because that's not right. You will want them to correct him, but calling out a student for his wrong answer is not good at all because they will be scared to even answer a question or ask questions or be active in class maybe. It's important to help students learn to use and refine their abilities to detect inconsistencies in explanations and to expect the hypotheses are consistent with evidence. We should help students with tools and strategies for expressing their reasoning, for making it more consistent, for hearing and responding to others' reasonings, or for keeping track of ideas people have and the evidence they collect in support, refutation, or modification of those ideas. In short, we should help students use and develop their abilities to participate in argumentations. We've shown that students have a lot of valuable knowledge and abilities, but we need to recognize these resources if we're going to help students to develop and refine themselves. For several reasons, that can be quite challenging, but some ideas are hard to explain, and even more so for students if they have little practice in trying to articulate their ideas. Sometimes the student or the teacher might understand what the student is saying, but not really understand the reasoning behind the idea. That is why the student thinking that, for example, that if there is no air, the ball, like say you have an example, and if there is no air in a ball, the ball would be coming down very slowly. This would be, in fact, a great example because the teacher would not explain what is going on with the ball. The teacher needs to explain why the ball is not full of air in general. It's kind of confusing, but this is a good example of like what teachers need to do to deeply explain to their students why there's no air in the ball when it's falling to the ground. But anyway, no matter how closely we try to listen to students, it's inevitable that teachers will miss some of what students say. It's inevitable in any conversation that participants don't hear or understand everything that is said. Still, it's always better to miss less and notice more. So we're practicing little listening, and as teachers, we need to learn to think of ourselves first as listeners. Teachers who accept that hearing students' ideas is an important part of science teaching are probably going to have a lot of discussions in their classes. Focusing attention on students' ideas, however, is likely to be in tension with what typically happens in science class and may conflict with teachers' and students' own expectations of what should be happening. It's useful to say a few things about those expectations, but it's about how to deal with the tensions that arise. It's important for teachers to see and experience that students are capable of productive conversations. Like, you want to get conversations going about a certain topic in science. You don't want them to have other conversations, only if you have free time. But anyway, it's important to have students discussing about the topic to get more knowledge of it in class. these were some of the key terms I pointed out from the section I read. It was a lot, I can tell, or I know, but it's a great. These were great points that I made, I thought, and hopefully you guys will agree. Um, I learned a lot from the example labs as well. They gave me as a visual on how to demonstrate a lab to a class as well. This will definitely be helpful for when I eventually teach a science class, possibly in the future. Uh, Hopefully, in the future, I'll be able to take away some of these key points I learned and use in these lessons because obviously I want to get something out of it, not just forget it all when I'm done with the class. But yeah, so thank you so much for watching my video. I appreciate it.